Hello, Stuart with you on another episode of Conversations and Connections, the official podcast of the Family Crisis Center of East Texas. Glad you could join us today. Before we begin, a comment about a couple of things. This year has just gone by so fast. I can't believe this podcast is going to come out the first week of August. And can't believe that August is already here. And school, if your child's school has not started yet, it's probably about to start. And on my way to the office this morning, granted, this is the first week of August, I already saw a house with their Halloween decorations up. Wow. If you have a group of kids, young adults, children that would benefit from a presentation on healthy relationships, get in touch with me. You know, you can email me at sburson, that's SBURSON at FCCET.com, or you can get a hold of me through the podcast at conversations at FCCET.com. I really would like to talk to a group of young people and do a presentation about relationships. That's my job. I go out, I go to the schools, I go to different organizations and talk to kids and adults about how to recognize unhealthy behaviors, how to have a good, healthy relationship, and all the things associated with that. So if you have a group, if you know of a group of kids, either at your kid's school, at church, maybe like a youth church group, or something like that would benefit with a presentation on healthy relationships, consent, bullying, staying safe online, anything to do with our relationships with other people, get a hold of me. I would love to talk to your kids and talk to some young adults about relationships. The guests today on the show, Katherine Johnson and Will Wyndham. Will is no stranger to the podcast. Will and I have done several podcasts together. Katherine has actually been on the podcast once before, but that's been a few years ago. Katherine and Will are both associated with our BIP program. So I wanted them to come in and talk about all things BIP and what that program is all about. Like I say before, a lot of times people don't realize all the other things that we do here at the Family Crisis Center. So I wanted Katherine and Will to come in and talk about the BIP program. So here they are, Katherine and Will. Well, Katherine, it's been a while since you've graced the microphone on the podcast.
It's been a minute.
It has. And of course, Will is no stranger to the podcast.
Yes, here again.
Kat, you've been taking some trips lately. You've been an international globetrotter.
I haven't gone anywhere too international. We did a cruise and got down to Grand Turk and some of those places. So it's been nice this summer.
What do you think about cruises? Do you like them?
Yeah, they're fun.
I've never been on one, and I kind of think it's either going to be one of those things I really love and I want to do it again, or it's going to be one of those things where I'm like, eh.
I think that the goal is go with people that you enjoy being with, and no set rules on what you're doing that day. We actually went on the biggest ship that we've ever been on this past time, and it was awesome. It was one of Carnival's newest ones, and it was fun.
Okay.
So,
well, great.
Nephew's graduation from high school.
Man, no one took me on a cruise for for high school graduation. Well, I was wondering, Will, I know, Katherine, you've been on here, it's probably been a few years ago to talk about the BIP program. Will's been on the podcast a few times, not necessarily specifically talking about BIP, but just talking about probably what you talk about in BIP as far as like healthy masculinity. Here a few weeks ago around Father's Day, we talked about fatherhood. But I wanted to get you guys in just to kind of talk about BIP, because I always, whenever I do presentations, I always tell people, people know the Family Crisis Center for the shelter, and they probably know us for the thrift stores, but they don't know about all these other things that the Family Crisis Center is actually involved with in what we do. So I do want y'all to come in and talk about BIP. And I guess we're going to just kind of fly off the gate. BIP, first of all, I know that's an acronym. What does that stand for? And what is the primary mission of BIP?
Yeah, so BIP actually stands for Batterers Intervention and Prevention Program. So it's kind of long and drawn out, but essentially it is the agency's way of taking a holistic view of how are we going to address domestic violence. So we have all these different programs, like you mentioned. We have the prevention piece. We also have what we call the reactive piece, where we're assisting clients that come to us that have been survivors of domestic violence situations. But what about the people that are actually doing the violence? And that's what BIP does.
Yeah. Okay. Who's required to participate?
Yeah, most of our folks that participate with us come through probation referrals in the communities that we serve. But, they've all been found to be, the aggressor in intimate partner violence, although while that's the main focus, we still get spillover from other types of, aggravated assault, family violence. But the main focus is intimate partner violence. And, of course, that just meaning that someone is in, primarily the male is in the heterosexual relationship with the female, and the male has, committed some sort of act of violence and been found guilty, and now he's been referred to the BIP group to participate with us. And so
all of these are men?
Yes. So we have a men's-only BIP group. That is how BIP's primarily started, way back in the day before we ever had a program here. But they do have women's groups. We just don't have one here, because ultimately we know that through research and things like that men are still the primary aggressors at this time in our communities. And so the need for male BIPs is still greater at this time than female.
Yeah. Where's BIP offered? I know there's Angelina County, there's Polk, and Houston County, right? Is there any other counties that BIP serves?
So technically, those are where our groups are located. However, we can accept men from groups all over. So we've actually had situations where men are actually out of another part of Texas, all the way as far as Bexar County, but they work close to us during the week, and so they may come to us. So technically, it's very similar to how we serve survivors. They don't necessarily have to be in our non-service county areas.
Right.
They can be outside of those counties, and they can still come to us.
Are all these men, are they all court ordered? Like, are they ordered by the courts? You have to attend a BIP program.
Not all. The majority are, like Will was saying, with probation is going to be the biggest part of our referral source. So that's where a judge is saying, either it's a deferred adjudication, or this is part of your sentence, or it's part of a protective order. But there can also be other types of referral sources, such as our CPS programs.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Have there ever been any incidents, or could someone just say, you know what, I want to be a better partner in my relationship. I think I'm going to attend BIP. I mean, theoretically, could that do you have to be made to go? Could someone just come on their own accord?
Yeah, we've had volunteers. Again, we don't talk about it enough, but it's interesting to, the work we do. We all three sit here, but, volunteering to just say, hey, I want to be a better father, husband, boyfriend. It's just such a rare thing, to say. And so while we do have guys volunteer, about 3 or 4 weeks in of these uncomfortable conversations, and we typically lose our volunteers. Not to say that you shouldn't volunteer, but again, I think in BIP it's all about accountability, which forces you to take a look at yourself. And of course, when you have to do that, it's a little bit more easier, I guess, than if you have a choice whether to do that or not.
Right. Well, and that's interesting. I guess it's different when you're made to do something than if you want to do it on your own free will. What are the attitudes with these men? Let's just say they get into some trouble. They're ordered by the court to attend BIP. That's the last thing they really want to do. Okay, now I got to go to these BIP sessions. First of all, let me kind of backtrack. How long does BIP last?
So our program is 24 weeks.
Okay.
So we are accredited by TDCJ-CJAD, so Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And so we have guidelines that we go by, and they have to complete 36 hours. And so we get to those 36 hours by an hour and a half for 24 weeks.
Okay.
So, but usually the overall attitude in the beginning is, of course, push back. I don't want to be here because accountability is difficult. However, once they kind of get into the group, then things seem to change. You ask about, do we have very many volunteers? No, we don't. But ultimately, men can make the choice to come to group. They can make the choice to be accountable. But if they don't come to group, those that are referred by the justice system, there's consequences for that, right? And usually those consequences are more uncomfortable than the uncomfortableness the first few weeks they have in the group.
Do you see a common attitude across the board generally about either attitudes towards women, the toxic masculinity trait, things like that? Is there, especially here in rural East Texas, do you see victim blaming going on? Do you see, I shouldn't even be here because blah, 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 blah?
Yeah, I think the common attitude out of the most people is they just, for whatever reason or another, they don't need to be here. It was her fault. It was a misjudgment by the responding officer. It was incorrect report of bruises on someone's neck, leaving the scene. If you can imagine it, we've heard it. And, I think really what we see, and sort of back to the conversation about volunteers, it takes about 4 or 5 weeks for these guys to just get over this idea that someone's going to judge them, shame them, blame them. And once they figure out that other men that have been in the group longer can talk about these things, they'll begin to turn a corner and talk about them. But, I think we've done this long enough to just know that it's going to take a few weeks for them to sort of shed that initial attitude that, they don't need it, they didn't do anything wrong, and actually someone else needs the intervention and not them. But usually by the 24th week, they've turned the corner.
Yeah. And, a comment that we are hearing more and more, I feel like these days, are, I wish that I would have known this when I was younger. I wish I would have had these conversations about these topics when I was younger. Do y'all share this with kids? Things like that. Like in high school, why didn't they teach us this in high school? So when we have visitors come to group, I think the number one thing that they say is, wow, that's not what I expected it to be. And like Will said, once these guys realize that we're not part of the justice system, we will hold them accountable, and that's not always comfortable. But essentially our goal is to present these ideas to them that they've probably never heard before and give them the tools to use those. And then it's up to them. It's their choice.
Do you have there been instances, and I would think that there would be as long as y'all been doing BIP, where a guy comes in with a very poor attitude, but then he leaves with this epiphany or whatever about, oh man, I get it now. It all makes sense. What I was doing was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we definitely see that. And it can be so different on so many different levels because, domestic violence and intimate partner violence is not a one size fits all. So people have this idea of what it is, just like the men coming in the group, they have this idea of what it is. And we kind of opened their eyes to some of their behaviors that they've been doing are really tactics that they've been using to gain power and control over their partners. Yeah. And once we point that out to them and then start working with them on how to change those things. But so many of these things I feel like are learned behaviors. We talk about domestic violence being a cycle of abuse through generations, and they learn these things, right? And a lot of times these behaviors, the masculinity piece that you talk about, is very much propped up by society still. And so we have to address those things, right? And when men start to realize it's the same as them coming to the group the first time, right? Society tells them men can't talk about their problems or their issues or anything that may be perceived as weakness, right? But once we give them the space and they understand after that 3 to 4 week mark that Will's talking about, then they open up. And I think people are surprised at how much men want to share.
Right. So you kind of touched a little bit on this, Katherine. On all of these weeks, was it 23? 24 weeks. What is it you guys talk about? What are some of the topics that you address with these men?
Yeah, it really runs the gamut from, I think when you get an elevator speech about this, just all things that affect men. It starts with tactics that men use around power and control, which, of course, again, that's the two tenets of the whole thing here. So these tactics of power and control, and then the way society affects, men's attitudes about women, about relationships. Then we talk about sexual violence, stalking, pornography. And then we talk about communication, which is huge. We'll get into some fatherhood stuff.
All of those different things kind of run together, right? Like we point out all the different things, all these tactics that they may be using that sometimes they don't even realize are a tactic, and then giving them other options. And it's essentially, we're going to give you these tools, and then you practice these tools.
Yeah. I've heard people ask y'all before, is this like anger management? And it really isn't, is it? Do you touch on anger management at all? But I think some people at first when they hear about this, they think, oh, well, it's an anger management class.
BIP is more emotion management.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think that, over the years, I think the best line that we may have ever come up with is, the difference between anger management and BIP is anger management gives you tools to manage your anger, right? Perfectly legitimate, great programs are out there, and, we support those, right? Learn how to manage your anger. BIP is going to go a step further and ask you, why are you angry in the first place, right? So you're addressing, like Will said, some of those deeper-seated emotions about what is it, A very simple example is, if they come in and they say, hey, I'm really angry about something, that doesn't give you anything to work with, right? But so I'm going to ask you to look at your feelings list. Tell me the feeling that is associated with this anger that you have, right? And if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I feel really disrespected, like I wasn't being heard, that is something that you can work with. And just something as simple as that, it goes that step further, right? Learn how to get in touch with what your emotions, ask for what you need, and then know that you can say it without judgment, right? Step outside of the gender box. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So for all of this, is there a formal curriculum you use that's like mandated by the state, or do you have a choice of curriculum that you can use? How does that work?
Yeah, so being accredited by the state, they have their governing bodies that tell us, I guess more accurately, they make recommendations for curriculums, which they go out and find and review. And we do use one, which is now they have disbanded and gone separate ways. We continue to use the curriculum, though, which is Men Stopping Violence, which is out of Atlanta. And we actually visited with those folks. We went to Atlanta and went through the training, and it is, on the approved list by the state, but they no longer update it. So we constantly look for ways to change and get better and keep up to date. But yeah, we follow the lead of the state, and then of course they are always typically pretty open to, if we find something, to send it up to them, and they'll take a quick review at it. But yeah, I think the world of BIP in the decade we've been around has tended to be the Wild West at times. So it's just an effort to rein in what everybody's talking to men about and sort of streamline it, because you can imagine that if we just said, hey, everybody can have a BIP group, now go talk to men about certain things, it's really hard to control the narratives there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting, too. You use a set curriculum, but men can join in at any time. So it's not like there's an official beginning, and now we're concluding after all these weeks, here's an end. I think it's neat the way, I guess, the curriculum is designed to where a man can come in at any time.
Sure. And that's one of the reasons we like the way that the curriculums run as well. And there's some very much truth to, when these men come in these groups, they have to listen to Will and I because we hold the privilege in the room, right? But once they realize that, those other men, they're going to listen to those other men before they listen to us, right? They're going to listen to us, but they're going to hear it, so to speak, from the other men. And so when you've got a gentleman that comes in and he's on week 2 or 3 and he's saying, he's pushing back and he's having some struggles with sharing and things like that, and then you have the man that's at week 20 and he's like, anything from encouraging him, saying, come on, man, like this, we know this is how this is, and this is, you can say this here, and, or holding them accountable, right? So when we see other men in the groups holding the other men accountable in the groups, that's kind of a show that we've done what we've needed to do. Like, they've heard us.
Yeah.
And I think it's very true that just that, that men are going to listen to other men that they know have been in that situation before, and they see themselves as equals in there. So
how often do you see men not completing? They're like, all of a sudden they just kind of drop from the face of the earth.
And I guess, that as far as like programmatic reporting goes, we have some numbers we have to hit, which is like, I don't know, maybe 55% completion of our men. And we routinely usually make that percentage to stay above the state check marks. But yeah, when it comes to reporting men that just leave the group, it's this whole ghosting idea. But we know that, we don't take those things personal. Men leave because life happens. Again, if you just absolutely show up and visit with us today and believe that it's 100% your intimate partner's fault that you're here, you're never coming back. I mean, if the state's wronged you, your partners file an affidavit of non-prosecution, but the state picked it up, and you're only here because, your security camera called the cops. I mean, you're just not going to make it, right? So again, it's these matter of choices and accountability.
Sure. And I think the majority of the reason why men won't complete is, like Will said, life just kind of happens. I think that jobs and the other struggles and things like that get to them, and but and then we just don't see them for a while.
Well, and I guess it can be difficult because these sessions are held during the day, and if you have a job, then I'm sure it puts the guy in a quandary. Well, okay, I got to explain to work why I have to be gone every whatever day of the week, or take a late lunch or whatever because of this, and then too. These guys are court ordered to attend, and if they quit attending, I guess it's on them.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and to address the question about when is the best time to have a group, and we've done it all. We've done it after hours. We've done it, after 6 o'clock. I think we've tried different things, right? And the reality of it is it's never going to be convenient for everybody. Even if we have groups that start at 6 o'clock, someone's still missing work,
Right.
Someone still is going to miss church. Someone's still going to miss going and picking up the kids, whatever it is. It's just never going to be convenient. And that is one of the unfortunate side effects of the behaviors that you've chosen. Mm-hmm. And so, but yeah, and essentially, if we stop hearing from someone, or if we're having issues with accountability and group, things like that we feel the need to reach out to that referral source, then yes, they would have consequences on that end. If it's part of a probation, they could be revoked. And that is not our goal. That is not what we want. So we do try to work very diligently to keep men in a group.
And I'm sure you'll work with them. I mean, I'm sure things happen where every now and then they may have to not come 1 week for whatever reason. You're not going to just throw them out if they have to miss 1 week. I mean, I'm sure that can be made up. Okay, this is a question that I'm sure if someone's listening, they are really wanting to know. So this is a men's group for perpetrators who have been found guilty of committing domestic violence, and there's a woman co-facilitating this. What's it like to be a woman facilitating a BIT program?
Yeah, I think that's probably the number one question I get. And I'll be real honest. So usually the way that it works is they'll see Will first. They'll do their intake with Will. They usually don't know about me until I show up in group. And I do.
Surprise.
Yeah, I do get the looks like, am I in the right place? Like, what are you doing here? Sometimes men will ask, which I always appreciate. Sometimes they just let it ride till we introduce who I am or whatever. But yeah, I think that I've never had a man just completely balk against me, right?
Okay, well, I was wondering if you've ever gotten any pushback or anything.
No, I mean not any more
this.
than what Will gets, right?
Yeah, okay.
So now, if anything, you will have guys that want to play the other card, right? And just be like super charming and, and it's like, oh, that's such a bad idea. And so, it just doesn't work, right? And so all these things that they are used to, how they quote unquote deal with women or communicate with women kind of go out the box, right? And so, but more than anything, I've been asked, am I afraid? And I have yet to encounter a BIT participant that I'm afraid of.
Right.
Yes, these people have committed some type of intimate partner violence against another female, but if violence wasn't a choice, these men would be violent towards everybody, every day, every step that they make. Mm-hmm. But they're only being violent towards their intimate partners, right? So I don't have that fear when I step in that room. And these are people, and they can change just like I can change, right? And so until somebody shares that information with them, and I think towards the end of groups, I I think they appreciate the quote unquote, if you will, female perspective. Sometimes they ask me directly, and I'm like, hey, I can't speak for all women. And we have to have those conversations sometimes because not all people are the same. So when you get all women do A, B, or C, right? It's like, hold on. And
you know how women are.
Yeah. So those types of things, I think they are given the opportunity to see the difference, right? And so sometimes they'll ask specific questions to me, things like that. But I wouldn't say maybe not even a handful of times have I been what I would consider disrespected.
Okay.
But the good thing about that is that gives me the perfect opportunity to teach them something, right? And usually Will's right there to back that up.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very deliberate having a male and a female facilitator because this may be the only positive example of a male and female relationship they've ever experienced, right? So if they show Will and I being respectful to one another, working together, compromising on things, not always agreeing on things, but moving forward, that gives them a really good visual of what relationships can be, right? And a lot of assumptions come from that, but it's interesting because we use that as well.
So you two co-facilitate. Have y'all ever been mistaken as a couple?
Oh my God.
It's pretty common, I would think, which is, you don't know whether to laugh that off or, it's kind of disappointing to see that just when a male and a female get along and you sort of, eliminate the power and control out of it, that, that's the assumption, right? You've got to be in this sort of relationship or whatever. But yeah, we don't get into all the too much boring of it, but the whole group is designed to reflect an intimate partner relationship and how, power and control should be shared. That's exactly why we would prefer to use co-facilitators that are male and female. Again, like Katherine saying, just to demonstrate respect, to demonstrate a healthy relationship, to see that, she can speak and he doesn't have to have the final say. I think that we've seen groups that really exercise the shame and blame. We've seen just presentations maybe with a male and a female where you get the male just take over the presentation, So we're just constantly reflecting on it to make sure the group reflects what a healthy, relationship would look like. These guys are going to have to listen to and respect what a female has to say if they're going to be in a healthy, intimate partner relationship. So we're going to force them to do it in group, whether they like it or not. Yeah, and then when they start talking about that, they think it's going to veer off the topic at hand, right? And really it's just going right into a perfect topic. And, we ask them to list out, why would you assume this, right? And then they list off all these things and like, oh, you communicate so well together and da-da-da-da. And it's like, we've been practicing talking to one another and talking with one another for the past 10 years or more. Imagine what your intimate partner relationship could be like if you practiced your communication skills with your partner.
Yeah. I've had a thought. Has it ever been considered or brought up, maybe not by y'all, but maybe another BIP program, to have a former participant be a co-facilitator, someone who's learned from this and kind of like a peer support type of person?
Yeah, in our BIP world, in our trainings that we go to, we have that a lot. Men that have been referred to the program, they've completed their program successfully, and after so many years, there's guidelines for that, right? They've completed so many years and they've become really successful facilitators, and essentially, for all intents and purposes, they are our equals in every day, right? And so, and I think that is amazing because, again, you're going to relate to someone that's been in your shoes, so to speak. And that seems to be a big plus for men.
Yeah. About how many guys do you usually have at a session? Just from my observation, it'll fluctuate. You may have 3 show up one week and 10 the next week.
It does, yeah. I mean,
Right.
I think we usually run about 10 enrolled, between Polk and Lufkin, and then maybe a few less there in Houston County, just depending on the weather of the criminal justice system. Dried up a lot around COVID, and then we got this flood back in, and then it levels out. But yeah, we see about 10 guys per session for each location that we go to. So, and I think that's the biggest thing. Again, men, when we see them, they really ask about where's the resources for men, but getting them in the door is the challenge, and then again, other men talking to these men that have been through BIP, we encourage that. But again, just the nature of working with men is, again, when they're forced to sit here for 24 weeks, they might tell you all about their intimate partner relationship. But on the 25th week, if you caught them on the street, at the gas station, they may tell you nothing. So, you just hard to get men back in these situations to talk more about it.
Yeah. Is there a particular standout guy that y'all have worked with that's just like the model participant, like a true success story?
I think it's a continuing thing, right? There's definitely those men that are probably different for both Will and I that just have never left our minds for different reasons. And success is something that isn't going to be the same for everybody, right? And so you have to gauge what success is for each individual person. But yes, there are those men out there that you're like, wow, I can really see. And you can hear it in the way that they speak, right? The way that they speak about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
their relationships that they have with not only their intimate partners, but everyone else. The way they speak about some hard truths that they learn about their families and things like that during this time. And so I definitely think that there are some definite people that come to mind. And, it could be something as simple as recently a guy that completed said, he's like, if something I've definitely learned is, he said, I used to use the curse word, the derogatory word for women, bitch. He's like, I used to use it all the time and never thought about it. And he's like, but after this group and talking and hearing, what it really means, he's like, I'm not going to have that in my vocabulary anymore. And, to hear him say that and know that he has teenage daughters, that he has an active parenting role with them, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, for them to know that their dad is making that change may seem very small to someone outside, but I can honestly say that I was very proud of him for that.
Yeah. I guess I want to close with this because the question just kind of popped into my head. Do you ever find it a challenge to get referrals? Like, do you think everybody in the system knows about BIP? And it's like, oh man, if you guys only knew that you could refer these guys to BIP, things might be so much better for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have established relationships that we've had in the community, and I think really that's what the state level wants us to do here with probation, parole. But we're affected by the same things that people don't talk about, the turnover. Mm-hmm. We may have a great assistant county attorney that sends us men, and we love them, and we see them, and we shake their hand, and then next thing you know, they're the district attorney. And so the next person that follows them up doesn't know about BIP, doesn't care about BIP, maybe lives with a perpetrator. I mean, we just don't know. And so you lose those connections through turnover, I think, a lot of times. But, from your position, man, we've had this BIP conversation, even though you've been more prevention, where people just turn around and walk away. I mean, they're not hearing it. They're in probation positions. They're males in positions of power to affect this type of conversation, and they ain't having it. You know what I mean? So we see that from time to time. So it's not everybody that's on board, but
and that's part of our job, being part of the program as well, is getting out there and giving those presentations and explaining to people what it is. Mm-hmm. Not just what it is, but how it works, why it works. We get questioned a lot about, is it really successful? And the research shows, yes, it is. TCFV just completed a really big study here in the state of Texas, and so we can take that back to them now, and those people that do have questions, and so just getting that information out there, and educating people on what it is, just like we do with all of our services, right? Just like you said, people don't even know what all services are available for survivors, so it's the same thing here. So getting those things out there, sharing the information, and we've grown. We started out with 2 groups that we ran pretty consistently, and we've recently added a whole nother group. So, and we have a new facilitator coming on. I mean, we're growing. So,
awesome. Well, and I think a lot of what you guys do, because I overhear y'all facilitate the group a lot of times across the hall. And I think a lot of things that y'all do kind of go hand in hand with what I do in prevention. A lot of the stuff I hear you guys talk about are the things that I talk about, and I'm sure vice versa. All right. Well, Katherine and Will, thank you guys. I appreciate you. You need to be on here more. One day, Katherine, I want to have you back on because, yes, Will is the BIP coordinator, but Kat, you're the Special Projects and Compliance Director, and that is just sounds so...
sounds busy, doesn't it?
It sounds very busy, and I know you do have your busy times, but I'd like to have you come back, just kind of talk about that side of it,
and
everything.
That's the life of the nonprofit. I mean, I've got a long title, but, if anybody that works for a nonprofit knows that, you're flexible. You kind of have to do what comes up. So
yeah. All right. Katherine Johnson, Will Wyndham, thank you guys. I appreciate it. If you feel like, if you have any questions about what we've talked about today, you can email us at conversations@fccet.com. Also, don't forget we have our toll-free hotline. If you feel like you are in need of our services, you can give us a call, 1-800-828-7233. And be sure to subscribe to Conversations and Connections. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon. Wherever you get your podcasts, there's a good chance you are going to find us. Conversations and Connections. Remember, be the voice. If not for you, for someone else.